you are, working with the Careers Hub with local schools, secondary schools, and colleges. How has that experience been? And what's it been like for you?
It's been great. I love every minute of it. I bless my career leader, probably bombard him with so many things I want to do with the school.
Welcome back to Spotlight Talks. Today we're joined by Dylan Aupetit, the Senior Global Partner Manager at Worldwide Technology. Dylan, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Then we always start these conversations with getting a sense of your own career journey and your own background. So how has it all sort of developed for you to this point? What are some of the skills you've learned along the way? Give us a sense of your journey.
Yeah, sure. I can take you back to, I guess, my first time in the UK. So I was born and raised in France. I done my A-levels all in France. And then after that, I just decided to move to another country. I wanted to go to New York, but my sisters were like, not going to New York. It's too far away. So I moved to the UK. First time on the plane, first time living with my family. And then I guess this is where it all started for me. I was an au pair for 8 months. And then from there, I decided to stay in the UK without a clear path of what I wanted to do. But I clearly wanted to stay and be part of, staying here, really. So I worked in retail shops, bars, and then I had a good friend of mine that mentioned, you should be in tech. You speak French and English. You should really get into an office job, go into tech, and that's where it all started. Somebody put something in my ear, and I just thought, let's run with that. And I had my first job in tech at 21 as customer services, and then from there I moved on to software vendor, and then now to a large social provider company, tech business. So yeah, it's been a long journey. It's been 12 years. If the skills that I've learned and gained is understanding who I was as a person. I guess when you're so young, entering the world of corporations and big tech, it is hard to adapt and being your true self. So I think that was the first thing that I've tried to work on is, being true to myself and my values and what I can bring to the table and my own voice. And then the art of business planning and creating your own little board of directors. I think I talk to kids a lot about this. I'm like, you should create your board of directors, get your sponsors, your allies, your managers, people that help you out for your careers, because you need to develop. And the only way you can do so is by having the people around you that have gained the experience over time, and then they can share that to you and translate that to you. So that's the two things that I've really worked on is being my true self at work, and then find out the board of directors that could really shape me, my future, and help me and guide me. That's the two big things for me.
And I mean, that's quite a decision to make to, up sticks and go and sort of, without that plan being laid out for you. Would you say that sort of, because we've been connected for a while, you've been working sort of volunteering through some of our programs, and which we'll get into. But would you say that sort of self-starting, kind of almost entrepreneurial kind of thing, would you say that that's something that you've built over time, sort of stemming from that point of, being thrust into London and the sort of bigness of it all and sort of finding your way? Have you taken a lot from that sort of experience?
Yeah, and I think he came to me before I left because in France you do your A-levels and then you have to put your wishes,
right,
or what's next for your university or any career path that you want to take on, and that's I put one wish, which I knew I wouldn't be accepted into the university. So in a way, I knew I wanted more, but I didn't know what I wanted. And I think the only way for me to express it was to go somewhere else to just find, not for myself, but, getting out there and be around nobody that I know and figure it out and learn. So I do think that always been something that I aim to do, even with the programs that I build. I'm trying to figure out ways that are very different and take risks. I think putting yourself where you're vulnerable and you need to rely on you. At the end of the day, you're your own brand, you're your own business. So I think that helped me even to these days to figure it out making choices and truly going to where I want to be and who I want to help and communities I want to give back to, and what mattered the most to me, the purpose of what I'm doing. So yeah, I'll say, yeah, it was there a bit before I left because I knew I wanted more. But again, I never had those opportunities in front of me. You know, I grew up on an estate, and around me there's nurses and people working in retails, and there's no big firm around where I grew up. I grew up in a small town. So I think that also was the push of me trying to see, you know, I can try to go big, but I don't know how I'm going to go big or try to make it somehow.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't speak English. I couldn't say a word of English. I remember landing in Stansted Airport with a dictionary in my pocket. And the au pair family was trying to find me and call me. And I was like, I can't, that's the problem. I can't even tell you where I am. And I was just going around in circles trying to find them for like an hour. And I finally found them. And it was just so embarrassing, but you know, it is what it is. And I've, taught myself English. I spent 8 months as an au pair to learn the language. So
it's been quite the journey to this point from Stansted Airport with a dictionary in the pocket.
I think that's brilliant. And what you said there about not having that representation around you to know where you wanted to go next. And I understand that you're an enterprise advisor in Lewisham for some of the schools there. Can you talk to us a little bit about the outreach work that you do, and to get students to you know, understand more about your industry?
Yeah, I think I started this journey of this purpose, and I guess that comes down to ally and sponsors and mentors, because they see you in different light than you see yourself. And you know, I remember talking to a mentor of mine and saying, you know, you have something going for you to help others, and clearly you have a passion for people to not struggle the way maybe you struggled, or you know, to help them understand that there's other paths in life, and it's not a straight path for anyone. Everybody's very different, and I think that's where it came to. And so yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, I started this not project but purpose of like helping others, and I probably spoke to like 4,000 students so far. I always, in a mentor where I go in a room or an assembly or school, it's just, if I can touch 1 or 2 students, I'm very happy and grateful. So this is my drive is obviously create change.
Yeah,
it's simply that, especially in the industry that I work in tech industry, there's a lot of change to be made. And I think life is full of systems, you know, family system, you know, work as a system, school is a system, everything that we do is a system. And you can't really change sometimes the system within, because you don't have the right voices and you can't see what's happening outside. And I do think that the school systems and the work environment system should be more linked together, because it seems like the tech industry is going so far, and it's hard for the school to keep up with what's going on. And that's my mission, is to share to the kids, you know, this is a path that you can take. This is a career you can have. Within tech, there's more than data science, more than maths. There's legal, marketing, there's a variety of roles that you can have. And also showcasing that, you know, everybody can work in tech. You don't have to be specific. You don't have to have a degree or anything like that. You can do it if you want to. And so for my career journey that I share, it's more about finding your purpose and using your skills and what you know you're good at to transform your journey. Because as I said, I didn't go to university. I got here as an au pair. I mean, that wasn't money. I've learned in English on my own with some of my friends helping me on the evening. You know, I was just copy and paste some resume of the book to start learning English. So I think all those little things that makes me, I want to showcase that to the younger kids, saying, you know, you can create your own path if you really want to. And I want to be visible and share opportunities. So we talk about, you know, apprenticeship programs, we talk about work experiences, we talk about them bringing to the office and see the environment of an office. It's so important to me, also making sure they understand what is coming for them. Because, you know, we're here, we all have a career right now, but they probably are 10 years behind, and in 10 years' time, it will be very, very, very different.
I think it's so interesting because this is why we need people like yourself, I think, within this system as you define it, between the 2 disparate systems between schooling and the world of work. because I could go in and to speak to students about how to apply for an apprenticeship. And I can guarantee you now that I wouldn't do it in anywhere near the same level of impact, because I can probably talk through sort of every stage of that process. And it's a very processy, dry thing to do. Dylan, you speak almost through the lens of building confidence, and you talk about finding purpose, but you lead with that. And it's almost as though, and you correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but it's almost as though that is the really important thing you're trying to get through. Oh, and by the way, here's how you apply for an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
How do you feel about that?
That's exactly what I'm trying to achieve is through. So I'm a big storyteller, and I think we all have a story to share. And I think sometimes people don't like sharing this story because you get very vulnerable. But you can only impact somebody by sharing a story. So, my way of finding purpose, my story, I do think that will help others, to understand that they can do it. So I lead with purpose. But again, also you can't be what you can't see. So
Yeah.
I have to be visible. I have to go out there and show my face. And to your point around apprenticeship programs and early career programs, for some of the kids, I'm an old man, and I'm only 32 years old. But for them, I'm like, you're old. So I do bring my network with me, and I'm very, very, grateful, and I have a great network that I bring on with me. Because I know those kids want to talk to somebody that, is not that far behind them for real experiences, for understanding what is really going on behind doors and so on. So I can share my purpose and find and help others. But I do bring my network with me because I do think there's a real meaningful communication that we can have in discussions when you got a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old, because they've been through that a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So they know where struggle is. They know how to apply for apprenticeships. All I can do is obviously talk about skill mapping and confidence and presenting and networking. But those younger generations can really share tips and tricks that I can't, because I've never been through apprenticeship programs. I've never been, to university. I never applied to anything except jobs. So I think bringing your network and people to other skills, so many things that I just bring people with me, really. And I'm so privileged to do so.
And the mentoring thing is a theme here, isn't it? And you've spoken about building your board of directors, which is quite a nice way of putting it. But if you're a young person watching this, say if you're studying your GCSEs, about to go into your A-levels, and you're thinking, this sounds brilliant, but how do you even get started? How, if it's, we talk a lot about social capital and the idea that if you've got really well-connected parents, for example, or you've got family members who, have big networks or high up within industries or whatever.
Immediate connections.
Right. Exactly. Then you're going to have more access potentially to that informal mentoring that goes through. But if you don't, and there's a lot of young people who do not, what would you say to those young people in terms of identifying a mentor, approaching somebody who might be able to support you through this? How would you even go about that?
Yeah, so I guess, and I tell the kids that quite often is 10 years ago, when I just got my first job in tech, around 10 years ago, I really started to create my own business plan. So, and it's where board directors comes in quite handy. I created a business plan for myself. So it's my business plan around my professional life and personal life, my goals, my ambitions, because they're obviously linked together. If I want a nice house and I have to have a nice job, so they're all linked together. So I think the first thing would be laying out what are your ambitions. And they don't have to be big goals. I mean, I'm talking about like maybe 3 or 4 milestones that you can reach in maybe 6, 12 months, whatever it is. Map out your skills, what you're good at, what you're not very good at. And from there, you have a view of like, what do you need from a mentor and which mentor will be best for you to guide you. And to fish those mentors and get them, I guess, you have to put yourself out there. And it is daunting when you got school and you got exams and you got a lot of things going on at that age. But I think nowadays there's a lot of organizations that can support young people like yourself. We work quite closely with young professionals. We've got Gen Z Club as well. So there's different, organization companies that can just help youngsters to find a community, a network that can share and advice. But then those people create, job fairs, career fairs. When you have professional coming in, to me, it's mind blowing that you can go to a career fair these days and there's maybe 15 employers and there's like thousands of kids coming in.
Yes.
How lucky, and I think sometimes they take this for granted, but how lucky you can be to be in a position where you can talk to different industries and different people. And to be honest, I'm pretty impressed with the younger generations coming prepared. Like they all have LinkedIn. I've been DM'd thousands of times on LinkedIn from young students, which is great because they're obviously fishing for help, for mentoring, for guidance. And I think that is what you can do, is understanding where you at, where you want to be, what are the gaps. And from that, you can really look at, okay, in this industry that I want to be in, who can help me? And then what to do is put yourself out there and network. And I think obviously LinkedIn is a great place to start with, but going to this event face-to-face is a great thing to do.
When you're engaging with young people, and specifically like secondary school, college-age students, what are some of the general misconceptions that you hear quite regularly around the digital and tech sphere?
That they have to have a degree to come in tech, to come on to tech. That it's a lot of maths. That is very closed door. You can only know somebody that works in tech to get into tech. I think that's the three things I'm hearing all the time, which is obviously not true. And we see more and more programs opening up to young adults to come along as young as 18. So it is not true, but that's the misconception that we've seen from the young student is they think they have to go to university and spend 4 or 5 years, and that's not the case. So yeah.
I have to ask the AI question, I'm afraid. So I think people are generally separating out into the kind of tech optimists and tech doomers. I'm not sure entirely where I fit on that spectrum. I think it changes every time I read something. Where do you sit on it in terms of, because we're obviously in the careers business, right? So we're working with careers professionals in over 240 institutions across central London as a national network that's, thousands and thousands of institutions with millions of young people. And we're in the business of trying to support them to plan their careers, or at least the first steps into their careers. And then we speak to people like yourself who say things like, well, it's going to change everything, So anybody who comes on and says, well, I know what this industry is going to look like in 10 years, there's an element of guesswork to that, right?
Yeah.
And I always go back to, we've been telling kids to learn coding and be coders for the last 15 to 20 years. And then Google Gemini comes along and sort of codes better than the average coder. So where are you on this? And how do we avoid falling into those kinds of traps, if they are traps there?
So yeah, I think we have entered an era that would change everything. I think you can't miss that. I mean, it's changing now anyway. It's starting already, and it will change every industry that you can think of, to an extent that we don't know. That's the only scary bit, is that we don't know how it will really change. All we know is that it's going to change. And I think the job landscape is uncertain. And you will see a lot of displacement of job, and things will disappear and new job will be created. So when I go to schools and do a lot of work with schools, I just want them to understand, what is AI? What is the terms, how it really works. I want them to have the keys to make their own choices when it comes to career choice. I want them to understand what the job could look like in 20 years, in 15 years. I want them to be I've learned to share whatever I've learned for this AI topic. So yes, it is very scary because it's moving at a pace that is hard to catch up, and every news is AI. It's very scary. On the other hand, AI is not all positive. Will have an impact on our ecosystem. Do we have the system? Do we have the ground to build a full-on rack of data centers to run AI? So I think there's yes, no, when you go into school, I just think all I can do for educators as well is teaching the terms AI, what it really means, how it works, how they can apply it for their own benefits. And I always say to kids, AI is your assistant. You are the brain. You are creative. And I do think that the schools will change. I think school will change. It will need to change to keep up. There's no way that we can keep the system the way it is.
Absolutely. And I think there's an importance there in what you said about educators using AI as a tool to help upskill students and embrace it rather than be reticent and concerned about where the future brings, because it sounds like where it's going to touch every job, and we don't necessarily know where that's going to go yet, but we will be using it as a medium and tools already.
And I think, you look at specialists of people that do a job and one task, and they've been studying for so many years to get to that point. We are moving away from this. I think the young people coming after us will need to learn how to have a broad of knowledge and skills and be able to touch every type of solutions possible in areas, from creating to prompting, to adapting. I think adapting will be a big one for the youngest generation. The way to adapt to all situations, it's going to be very hard to do. And this is what I'm trying to do with schools now. I think we could be, we could do so much better, so much more if I could have 25 of me going around and helping to create that message across, because I think it's so important. And that's my fear, actually, to people behind. They all behind. And when it comes out to the new generation, then there's no new generation because they've never been taught.
AI literacy needs to be taught. And
that opens door and flexibility to schools to then revamp and reinvent themselves how they go about education.
There's definitely something, I think, in the water now around, deep philosophical questions around in an AI defined era where, we're all going to have robot overlords. And, I always say please and thank you to ChatGPT. So I think
You're so polite.
They'll spare me. But no, so I think there are these philosophical questions around, in that world that you've just described, what is the purpose of state-funded education? What is the purpose of a standardized curriculum? Who is it for? What is it for if not to prepare our young people for the rest of their lives? And that is not just about knowledge transfer. That's not just about, here are a list of facts that you must now memorize. There is emotional regulation, there's social connections, there's conflict resolution. There's so many things that teachers have to do, on almost concurrently in order to, support these young people to become well-rounded members of society, right? So I certainly think that we are having this national conversation, maybe probably global conversation around, well, in a world of displacement, in a world of, flexible labour markets and focusing on essential skills. I really like what you said there around the adaptability and the application, right? So, do you foresee this where, we're going to be in a labour market of the future where actually the skills are the thing that's the marketable thing, and whether you're applying that in law or finance or construction, or obviously there are some hard skills that, if you're going to work in more vocational settings, then you're going to need those, and even they may be impacted. But that adaptability, that kind of flexibility, and, the non-linear career paths, I mean, that's already starting to open up, isn't it? And is that something that you would be encouraging maybe school leaders and then maybe even parents to be thinking about, is actually, and maybe it goes back to what you were saying around that skills mapping that you were talking about. How do you think about that?
Exactly that. I do think that children will be more adaptive to the world that's coming to them if we teach them how. So networking, presenting, confidence, skill mapping, financial literacies, I think that's very important, and something that we don't often do at school, in school, which I think is bonkers when you think about it, because you only find out how mortgage work when you apply for a mortgage, which is it is a bit crazy. But those key areas, I think, are so important. I think, yes, AI will be everywhere. Yes, we will probably going to talk to an AI agent or chat box. Yes, that is the future, and everyone can escape that. But at the end of the day, we're gonna buy from a person. That won't change. We're humans. We're self-centered. We want purpose. We want connections. This is not gonna go away. This is who we are as people, and as the human race. So I don't think that will go away. But I think what would differentiate somebody successful, somebody that is relying on the solutions, is the ability to communicate, to network, to have empathy, to be able to be authentic to what they're creating. I think that's going to be the differentiators. I think we're going to see businesses that will probably be booming with just AI. I'm sure we're going to see people being millionaires, one-person CEO using all AI technologies and being a millionaire or billionaire or whatever it is. That's great. I think some of them will have done for at some point when it's all a lie, and there's no, real people behind. So I think that is what I'm trying to turn my head around. Is this is happening right now. We're seeing it happening on the news. I work for big tech businesses. I know what's going on within the industry. So I do think that we should look at the soft skills and have them gaining more skills as they go along. Because, it's so with social media, all right?
Well, we didn't learn from that, didn't we? We have to learn from that. And sorry to jump in, but the smartphone revolution is an open-ended experiment on a generation of young people.
Yeah.
Right. And it's only now that schools are really starting to say, right, we're banning the smartphones in school time. We're doing that kind of, I know of a school. It's not one that I'll name, of course, but they're banning smartphones until lunch and break. I'm thinking that is the worst of all worlds, because what you're doing there is like saying, okay, it's not going to disrupt the teaching and learning, but you've just removed this highly addictive thing from these young people. So they're acting up all morning. Yeah. They get to break, they get the phone back. None of them are communicating. None of them are playing.
Social time in the day.
Yeah.
None
of them are playing. They're all checking up on, Snapchat and TikTok or whatever the kids use.
Yeah. No, but it is true. And I think we are always trying to go to the edge of that limit, that we always want to try to get that limit on where we can go. And it's going to be the same with AI. We can just try to go so far and realize, what have we done? We need to go back. And same for phones, social media. You see it now, the schools, and then parents are very conscious when you can have an iPad.
Much more,
much. It's simple, like, healthy food, cigarettes. It was a trend back then. Now it's no longer a trend. I think we really want to try to go to the edge and then realize, actually, we can't really do that. And with AI, I just want to make sure that we don't go to that edge with kids.
Yeah, that it's controlled.
I don't want that to happen for us to realize they will have no idea.
Yeah.
What about AI in the class? I'm going in on AI now, and but AI in the classroom, right? So let me present a case, and you can tell me why it's potentially bad or not. So if you're using, say, an AI tutor that knows you better and knows your style of learning, your pace of learning, what you know already, and it knows you directly, and you have its undivided attention, right? You see where I'm going with this. If you've got a class of 30 students and you're dealing with, Jimmy who's forgotten his homework, and you're dealing with this person over here who's bickering with that person, and, or you're dealing with a set of students within the class who are struggling with what you're doing. So these kids are now getting bored because they've done, the standard kind of things that teachers have to deal with all the time. To keep that quality of teaching and learning, there is an argument for this individualization that AI can bring. How do you see that progressing? Where are the pitfalls there? Whilst we navigate the AI boom in ed tech, which is, I think, now the second fastest growing aspect of this. What are the pitfalls that we need to avoid? Because we don't want to replace teachers. I think you've given a really compelling argument as to why. But when you talk about avoiding going to the edge, I would guess the edge there would be, you've got 30 kids all staring at screens for 6 hours a day. And what on earth is that going to do for their cognitive development? how do we avoid that? Where are the pitfalls? What would your advice be to kind of school leaders who are thinking about embracing tech in this way?
And I think that is the worst case scenario, to be honest. If you walk into a classroom and they're all on screens and they have somebody that talk to them constantly and they don't even look up or they don't even see the sky or wherever it could be, I think that is a worst case scenario. I think in my world, I would like to see AI being an assistant to the teachers, and the teachers are in control of what's going on more than anything else.
Yeah.
I think the teacher should be the first layer of training, educating them how to use AI accordingly, using the right prompt to help them with their issues or challenge that they may have in the classroom. I think that will be great because that gives time for a teacher to be more involved emotionally and creating different exercise and curriculum, talking about networking, confidence, presenting, things that you rarely do until you past 16 or you're about to leave school, secondary school. So I think if you can do this earlier, will be a benefit. I'll be against having, I think teachers should be the one in control. I mean, right now, anyway, there's so many limitations and regulations. Some schools, I was talking to a school earlier, they can't even use ChatGPT because the school and Wi-Fi the VPN do not allow them to use that. So,
but is that not another worst case scenario that schools say, this is too high, I'm not touching it at all, and none of those kids learn how to do it?
Yeah. That's it. And I think there is a reticence sometimes in teaching of the fear of the unknown. If you've got this tool here, and rather using AI and leaning into that as a tool that helps serve the classroom, and we don't want to go sort of in that dystopian future of, like you presented there, of everyone looking at the screen. It's not there to replace the teacher or the classroom assistant. It's there to help and support for that.
I would feel much more confident in its kind of use case within classrooms if I could at all trust the AI companies and the big tech companies, and you can bat this back if you want, but to self-regulate. These are platforms and products that are all have a business model behind them. They're all vying for attention. And if we genuinely want to learn from the social media revolution, which frankly addicted whole populations to activity feeds over the course of a decade, then why don't these companies come through with products and tools that are actually built for the education environment, not just throw open the liquor cabinet and everyone have at it, so if I could trust those companies to do that, and maybe there is a role for legislators and so on in this, I don't know, but how do you see kind of regulation and that kind of thing?
I know what you mean. I know the big tech have obviously an agenda, and sometimes it's not educations. It's not, sometimes pretty sure it's not educations, they're focusing on end users experiences. Not education and the impact that this could have. I do think that at some point when we talk about new job that will probably come along, I think will probably have an AI assistant teacher and someone that can understand the AI piece that they work on. And would we see schools that have the budgets and infrastructure to have their own AI? Probably. And that will mean that the others won't have anything. And that, again, we're back to the circle of this is not fair. Even though AI could bring so much fairness in all of this because it's a system that speaks everybody's language. But I'm sure you will see elite schools way more advanced than the other public schools across London and across the world, I think. And that is a challenge because, again, you will see people using it and thriving and others being very behind.
I wonder if, with obviously your background coming in to the UK and learning English, how your education could have been benefited, I suppose, if there was AI in the classroom, and an argument for that in particular for English as an additional language classes where the subject teacher is having to teach a curriculum and perhaps there's 6 or 7 languages that they're having to try and translate some of the work for and differentiate with just a dictionary in front of them, and that could be a really useful tool for the classroom as well and help
even
students.
So as a business and that has been driven from the US, we've launched a educator program around AI to support teachers so for them to learn AI and how to prompt accordingly. And me and my colleague are working on a exercise with the teachers around, neurodivergent children on the spectrum. You might have a class of 30 people, and we know to today ages, you at least have 5 or 10 children that are on the spectrum in a per class. So how can this help teachers to better understand their students and to tailor the exercise to that student? And I think you can really utilize AI around creating tailored exercise for children that are struggling to learn the way others learn.
Yeah.
And I think that's your point is, I think that's why we could really use AI in languages, in trying to tailor programs, different classrooms, different children, helping teachers mark up exercise quicker. And we know teachers go back home and they never stop. They do this good, but it doesn't stop. So I think that is why I'm still positive of AI in school. I think that will help take a lot of time. Which time can be refocusing on what we discussed, obviously, the one-to-one pairing, the smaller groups. So I think that could be beneficial.
Yeah.
And to bring it back to kind of careers advice and guidance, if it isn't connection you're looking for, if you just want some cold hard advice, I'm interested in this sector, or somebody came in to speak at our school today from tech and I'm interested in working there, what subjects should I study for this particular bit of it, say, or are there any other avenues available to me, or what's my local kind of post-16 offer, or these kind of things, which typically at the moment would be some kind of, you'd have to go and research those questions, you'd have to go and maybe speak to your careers advisor or your tutor or whoever it might be. It might be quite an iterative process to actually get the information that you need, put it all into one prompt. And as long as the stuff is reliable, and you might want to go and get that checked maybe and just say, is this right? Then, that can significantly shorten that. And I think this is why I said at the start, right, even though I've presented quite a gloomy picture, I do oscillate between kind of optimism around AI and tech and how we might be able to use it to best prepare young people for their futures, not least because it will be so interwoven into their futures as a thing. But also, I do think there are dangers in that, and there are risks also. If we're not careful and we don't learn the lessons of the technological revolution that's already happened in our lifetime.
That's a great point that you made. I didn't think of that. Actually, I was talking to my carer lead in Lewisham yesterday about the program for primary school, and that I will be launching there in June. And we're talking about the benchmark of doing one-to-one with children. And I didn't think about using AI as a prompt to get the information quicker.
Well, I've now trademarked that. Worldwide Technology can't go and market this as an idea now.
Dylan Aupetit can though. Dylan can. That's a good chat, because I remember going to one-to-ones with the carer leads, and they'll have leaflets around the table and you have to pick and choose. But I guess AI could utilize a lot of data from the internet and pull out a lot of things. So that's a very good shout.
Schools are using that responsibly as well, and using that as a standardized template, and using those prompts to scaffold some of the questions. It just makes it a lot more equitable then in the classroom for students to be able to access all that information.
Especially if you can't access it at home.
Exactly.
It's all because that's my worry with schools or careers leads who say no, blanket no, which I would understand, by the way. We don't know enough about this yet, or it's too unreliable, or it's unsafe, or there's concerns about, right, okay, we're not using it. And I would totally get that. But then you will have a subset of students, very likely, that won't be able to access these tools at home, whereas their peers, so maybe their peers in that classroom, but broader, the people that they're going to be going into direct competition with for apprenticeships, grad roles, these kind of things. There is a sort of fairness question to it. I want to get in, just to bring it back to your work with the Careers Hub and kind of how you found that. So you're an enterprise advisor with this, which means that you are, working with the Careers Hub with local schools, secondary schools and colleges. How has that experience been? And what's it been like for you?
It's been great. I love every minute of it. I bless my career leader, probably bombarding with so many things that I'm going to do with the school. No, it is good, and it is good to understand really deeper understanding of the school systems and what is a priority for them and what is going on. Because obviously, I'm from a different world to a school system, and I think sometimes you want to shake people and be like, we need to move faster. And I understand you can't move faster because it's a system in place and a lot of approval and so on. But it's been amazing. I mean, I've also been doing work with primary school in Hackney, we worldwide for the past 4 years, which really drive me to become an enterprise advisor, to do more, because I thought, I'm already doing it, so I can just replicate what I'm doing across different school, which obviously works perfectly because I already tested the programs and everything's it works. So, around cybersecurity, AI, and so on, which is skill mapping. I'm trying to help where I can. I said my network has been a big thing. You want to create visibility, I'll happily open the floor to others to lead and share their stories and where they're at. So it's been amazing, and I think we've done some amazing things so far. From apprenticeship week, I had 5 apprentices coming to the school, sharing their stories, their background, which was amazing. The AI program that's going live in June for primary school, and then we're the same for secondary school later in September. I was in a position where I could offer 5 spaces as work experiences to the school that I work with. And I think sometimes that's what it is, small things can make a bigger impact on school. It's only 5 spaces, but that means that they have a big tech business that is allowing to share 5 space to them. And I think that's quite big. Sometimes you don't realize small things can be a big thing for young kids to be going to the city in a big tech environment and experience that workload, and present and learn. I mean, so I think that really, that has been amazing to see and to do and create and be very creative at the school and promote what I know and what I know is going on in the corner. And you talk about AI, but it's not only AI, it's cybersecurity, is data management, is all the soft skills. There's so many areas that are all linked together. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, and I bring the opportunity to them, and they can choose. I just want to bring the menu on the table, and they can choose what they want.
And this is really kind of an opportune time to be having this conversation. There's so much talk at the moment around work experience. The statutory guidance has just been updated for schools, colleges, and ITPs a couple of weeks ago. 2 weeks worth of work experience. We're going to need a national effort. We're going to need businesses of all sizes, of all sectors. We're going to need school leaders. We're going to need the whole system to
come on board
with this and drive this. And I think that's exactly why we do these conversations, is to really put the spotlight on those individuals and those businesses that are driving this, the values of that, the reasons as to why we do it. And you're right in what you say around the impact, because it might not sound like much, 5 places for a large company and so on. But for that school now, that is huge, because that it gives them that demonstration that this works, that these businesses exist. And for us, our job is to go out to the many tens of thousands of businesses across even just our region and say, well, this can be done. And there are models, there are ways of doing it, there are resources, there are connections. Like, it doesn't need to be something that's this huge it's just one part of what you guys do. And in terms of that work experience and sort of how that's come around, and because Worldwide Technology seems to be putting quite a lot of resource into this as a business and as a sort of international organization, why is that? What's the benefit for you as a business if you were to remove kind of your personal passion for it, which I think comes through so strongly? why would business engage with this? What's in it for them?
I think it's part of our core values and that community outreach piece and supporting community that we serve, people that consume what we're selling, I think. We just want to support all those communities that we serve and people that consume what we sell. And that is really part of our core value. This is what we believe in and live for. We have Day of Carings where we bring people, a team together to go and deliver the AI program, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's out of a Day of Caring. It's a payday that you can take off and do your own thing. So I think it is part of a core value, and that's across all region. Across APAC, EMEA, and the US, we are very keen in supporting the younger generations. In the US, obviously, it's a bigger house, there's a lot of employees. So they do a lot more things, hackathons, and have all girls coming and do some coding and so on. So there's way more that could happen in the UK once we get bigger. But I think we do our bits, and I think this is part of who we are. We are passionate about helping the next generations. I mean, today, in the office, we had a year 4 and 5 from Manville Hackney School to come in. We sponsor the drones coding program curriculum. So we came to showcasing per groups the coding patterns, and you can see the drones flying, doing flips, just with what they create on the patterns, and we do prices and so on. So it is interesting.
That's incredible. Year 4 or 5.
And we ask the questions: do you guys use ChatGPT? And they all raise their hands. And you ask them, what is AI? A little girl turned around and said, well, this is software encoding and a lot of patterns behind it, and whatever you put in it. I was like, this is you want to sit here?
And that's case in point, isn't it? Why educators need to lean into this, because young people are going to be using this and they already know about these things and can answer these questions already and are aware of AI. So using it as a tool is imperative, really, to catch up with the curriculum and embed it in there.
Yeah, and that was also my other fear is because children are so clever, and we see with social media the way they interact and the way they use it, is that again they will be ahead of educators.
Yes.
And that I have a school that said, well, yes, all good and fun, but what happens if they use AI to do the homework and the essays and all of that good stuff? How do we double check? How do we control? Which is going to be very hard to control, especially when school don't have the budget to have those solutions to double check.
Yeah.
So
AI checking AI.
Yeah.
So you can, by the way, there's tools that check if that is AI generated. So you can. So I think we're gonna have to be very creative and make sure that educators are way ahead of the children.
Yeah.
I think it's we talk about when in corporation we talk about reverse mentoring, where you can get a mentee that is younger, or you can get a mentee that is older, and we both ways mentor each other to grow, to learn. And I think schools should do similar programs, because if they're using ChatGPT more than you do, I think we probably can teach you a thing or two. But obviously you want to avoid that scenario where it's way ahead of you, and then in a classroom with 30 kids that always use AI, and then
What a great opportunity though for young people to be able to demonstrate leadership skills and their core skills to their educators.
No, for sure.
I don't know, this is not a fully formed thought, but there's one way to get through, because I think you're bang on that they're going to use this regardless, right? If they've got access to it, they're going to use it. I think this comes back to a little bit of kind of ownership and giving people the tools to actually take ownership over the decisions that they make. So when the smartphone, I keep coming back to it, but when the social media smartphone revolution happened, suddenly you had your entire social network in your pocket at all times, which as a teenager is the biggest thing in your life. And it's a wonder, no wonder they, we see all of the fallout from that to this day. But nobody ever sat me down, for example, and said, here's the business model. Here's how they're going to monetize your attention. The longer you stare at this screen, right? And I'm not saying that this is a silver bullet and this is the way to fix it. but at least give people the tools to take ownership over their usage, right? And this is why I think what you're doing in schools is absolutely essential. It's hearing from somebody that is more outside of their immediate environment. It's somebody who can come in and say, I am a role model because I'm working in this industry. I get it. I speak with authority and credibility on the subject. You need to be careful. Here is a way of using it. And when you talked earlier around, it's an assistant. It's something, you are still the brain. You are still the thing that's controlling this. There's something that we need to do, I think, within, and careers and employers really need to, I think, take a lead on this, which is we need to get people back to a point where it's kind of learning is a good thing for its own sake. Like, I need to learn how to construct logical thoughts and arguments. And if AI is going to help me do that, great. That's if it's going to speed up that process maybe, or make me do it better. I don't know. That's like very technical. But if AI just comes in and does the final stage for me every time, I lose out on all of that logical process, and I'm not quite, I don't have the skills. So I think AI literally has got to be a part of this. And, I don't know, there's something in that, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the end point for me is I want them to understand how things work, because they're going to consume it.
Yes.
And if we want social media, nobody sat us down around private informations, personal informations, around how everything works behind the app, how the data is managed and shared.
Yeah.
I think you have to get to that edge quite late on to figure out, that's not great.
I would not have chose this.
We could have avoided this if we teach them how it works. It's like similar to our generation. One day you wake up, you got a flip phone, and then you got a big computer. A year later, you got a computer that small. Things are moving rapidly, and I think we always miss the opportunity to share the behind of the scene. But with AI, I think this is because it's so big and it will change everything. We can't do that. We will need to focus on how it works, what are the terms, what are the jobs that gonna be open around this AI explosion of subsets and solutions, so they can better understand how it really works and how they can choose their paths. I think that's for me the key. I don't want them, especially for children that I know come from the same background as me, or look like me even, that will be struggling moving along. So yeah, that's my aim, to understand what you consume before it's too late.
I could talk about AI with you for another 3 hours, I think, but we are coming to the end. We always ask the same question at the end with all of our guests, that we like to build a case for optimism, even though you just so could you give me a sense of what you're hopeful for, and what you're most optimistic about in the years ahead?
I think there's great opportunities. I think a lot of businesses will be created by the next generations, probably not us. Sorry to tell you that. But for the next generations,
It needs to go well.
Yes. I do think AI will bring some fairness in some situations. I think it will help equalize some gaps that I've seen in educations, in personal life, in society in general. I think if a child from somewhere, in the middle of nowhere with very little, can just go on an AI station and type, a question and get the same answer that we could get here in a big city, I think that is powerful. But yeah, I that's where I think it could be amazing to create more connection. But as we've seen with social media and iPhones and phones, and sometimes when you think and create connections, it can burst apart. So I'm a bit worried about that. But I do think it will be a great way, and great transformations of how we live, how we do things. It's just we don't know how to that extent that will go. But yeah, I'm just hoping that obviously the work that I do impacts the young students, and that they have the keys to make their own choices and the right choices for them, and that they can have long careers and switch on if they need to. But I think I'm trying to get the right keys for them to just pick and choose at the end of the day. I'm just trying to be the tunnel that can provide informations, and then they will be the one obviously choosing. But yeah, that's my aim.
Well, Dylan, thanks so much for not just coming in today, but for everything you've done so far with the career. So we really enjoy having you and your expertise that you bring to this space. The schools that work with you are really lucky to be working with you. And like you said earlier, if we could have 25 of you, I think we'd probably be in a better place. So,
I'm a Leo, so that's probably yeah.
well, what a note to end on. Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.